Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to Plus 2 Biology. So, we were discussing the chapter Biotechnology Principles and Processes, and our next topic is cloning vectors. So, under the tools of rDNA technology, the tools of genetic engineering, we have discussed the first topic as restriction enzymes, and the diagrammatic representation of the action of restriction enzymes with the help of the example EcoR1 we have already completed, and I'm sure all of you are very thorough with that topic. And let us move on to the next tool in genetic engineering, the recombinant DNA technology as cloning vectors. You know, the most commonly used cloning vectors are plasmids. Okay, the vectors, the role of vectors in rDNA technology is to carry our desired gene to the host. Okay, to deliver the desired gene to the host. So, why are plasmids used as a successful cloning vector? Because plasmids are already present in the bacterial cell. You know, the most commonly used host is what? Bacterium. Okay, these plasmids are already present in the bacterium body or the bacterium cell. So it is easy to deliver a plasmid into the host bacterium without any other disturbances. Okay, so listen here, and can you just tell me another organism which can enter into a bacterium? Can you just tell me an organism which can have its expression in a bacterium? It is nothing but a virus which infect a bacterium. Okay, similarly we are introducing plasmids. We can also introduce bacteriophage to the bacterium. So just keep in mind, both the plasmids and bacteriophages can be used as cloning vectors to deliver a gene into bacterium body, a bacterium cell. Is it okay? So the plasmids and bacteriophages can be used as the common cloning vectors. When we discuss other examples of cloning vectors, not only this plasmids and bacteriophages, we can there are many new cloning vectors. For example, yeast artificial chromosome can be used as a cloning vector. Then bacterial artificial chromosome can be used as a cloning vector. Then Ti plasmid, one type of plasmid can be used as a cloning vector. Then transposons can be also used as vector to deliver the gene to the host cells. Okay, mobile genetic elements, they are able to move. So this can be used as a cloning vector. There are many cloning vectors recently discovered. Anyway, we are moving to these two, the basic ideas, these two as the cloning vector. Plasmids, and when we compare plasmids and bacteriophages as the cloning vector, what is the main feature? Why we can use this as the cloning vector to bacterium? Tell me, what is the first characteristic which make this fit to deliver gene to here? Why are plasmid able to deliver gene here? Why are bacteriophage able to deliver gene here? It is because both these plasmids and bacteriophages have expression here. It can replicate within the bacterial cell. Okay, so both the plasmids and bacteriophage can replicate inside the bacterium, within the bacterium. That's the most important feature. Both the plasmids and bacteriophages can replicate inside the bacterial cell. Are you okay? And very important thing, usually the plasmid, okay, some of the plasmids show only single copy inside the host cell. Some of the plasmids are single copy plasmids. Okay, such kind of plasmids are able to produce only one copy inside the host cell, whereas some other plasmids are multi-copy plasmids. Then what is the advantage? They can produce many copies within one cell itself. It may be able to produce 15 to 100 copies of plasmid within single cell. Okay, are you following? That means when we compare these two as the cloning vectors, both these are able to replicate within the host cell. Okay, when we take the copy number, how many number can be produced inside the host cell? Bacteriophages can produce number of copies inside the host cell. Similarly, multi-copy plasmids can also produce number of copies within one host cell. Okay, just keep in mind what quality makes these two fit as cloning vectors. Okay, the first and important property is what? It can replicate within the bacterial cell. And when it replicates, it produces the gene of interest also doubled. And sometimes even the number gets more if it is multi-copy plasmid and bacteriophages. When a virus, bacteriophage attack the bacterium, it produces number of copies within the host cell, not even one copy. Okay, did you get me? So it can replicate and produce number of copies within the host cell. Okay, next we are discussing the characteristics of a suitable cloning vector with the help of a typical example, PBr322. So what is PBr322? It is a cloning vector. That means it is a plasmid. It is a synthetic, artificially made plasmid. Okay, it's a man-made plasmid, PBr322, and with the help of this example, it's drawn here. You have to draw, study the diagram also. It may come for drawing. So this is a plasmid is a circular DNA, and this is a synthetic plasmid with ready-made nucleotides attached. Human-made nucleotides attached. PBr322. With the help of this example, we are going to learn the characteristics of cloning vectors. What are the suitable characteristics of a cloning vector? What are the characters a cloning vector must have? The first and most important feature, a cloning vector must contain oocyte. A cloning vector must contain oocyte. Here you can see the oocyte here. Okay, this is a suitable cloning vector. It's a typical one. Here you can see an oocyte. Then what is the need of this? You already know, if there is no oocyte, this plasmid cannot replicate. So oocyte controls not only the replication but also the copy number. So just understand, a cloning vector must carry oocyte. It is because it controls the replication origin. Where it starts. At this place only replication begins. So it controls the origin of replication origin, and also it controls copy number. How many times it should be copied, how many times this plasmid must be produced within the host cell. Okay, this oocyte is controlling two characters. So once again, the significance of oocyte. Why? Oocyte is must in a cloning vector. Oocyte controls the origin of replication, where the replication begins. And also the same site controls how many copy number this should be copied. So that is must for a cloning vector. Okay. Second feature, and a cloning vector must contain cloning sites. Cloning sites. We have already discussed what are cloning sites, or otherwise recognition sites, otherwise restriction sites. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by the presence of cloning sites in the cloning vector? If this is a cloning vector, if it does not contain any palindromic sequence inside. Imagine this cloning vector is not having any palindromic sequence inside. That means with no enzyme we can cut this. Okay, using whatever enzyme we are unable to cut this plasmid and insert a segment. So what is must in a cloning vector? A vector plasmid or a vector should contain cloning site, minimum one cloning site. Okay, so if there are cloning sites, okay, we can cut at that region using that particular enzyme. Here you can see number of cloning sites shown. Okay, see PST1, PVU1, EcoR1, CLA1, HINT3, BAM1, SAL1, PVU2. What does indicate? This never means EcoR1 is present here. It never means PVU1 is present here. These are enzymes. These all are enzymes name. EcoR1 you have already studied. This is the name of a restriction enzyme. It's the name of another restriction enzyme. These all are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 names indicate 8 restriction enzymes. They are not present there. Then what it means? With that enzyme we can cut this portion. With EcoR1 we can cut this portion. With CLA1 we can cut this portion. With HINT3 enzyme we can cut this portion. It simply means that, for example, EcoR1, you know, it is GAATTC, it's palindrome that is present at this region. Okay, this region of the DNA, that sequence is present. I mean, the palindromic sequence of EcoR1 is here. So, using EcoR1 enzyme, we can cut this DNA at this place. And we can link a foreign gene here. Okay, similarly, the palindromic sequence of PST1 is here, present here. Using this enzyme, we can cut here, only at that place. Then we can insert a DNA there, foreign DNA there. So simply it means the presence of cloning sites means there should be palindromic sequences for various enzymes in the cloning vector, minimum for one enzyme. Then only we can produce a cut and insert a DNA here. We can produce recombinant DNA only if we are able to cut the DNA. Okay. So, these all names indicate what? These all names indicate enzyme's name, and this marking indicate using this enzyme we can cut here. Using this enzyme we can cut here. Okay. So, did you get me what is a cloning site? It's a palindromic sequence of what? Palindromic sequence of restriction enzyme. A cloning site means it's a palindromic sequence of restriction enzyme. Okay. I think it's clear. Then listen to me carefully. Suppose EcoR1 is having another cloning site here. Okay. Here also it is GAATTC. Here also it is GAATTC. EcoR1 is having one cloning site here and one cloning site here. You just think of that case, and will it be beneficial for us? That's my question. If the same enzyme is having two cloning sites in a vector, in this plasmid in a vector, will it be beneficial or harm? That is what my question is. It is disturbing our cloning process, I mean our genetic engineering process. The reason is when one enzyme is having two cloning sites in the plasmid, it produces two cuts and these things will be separated. Okay, we may have to insert at both the places, and anyway this is creating troubles. Okay, preferably one enzyme must contain one cloning site in the cloning vector. So understand, cloning sites are very much necessary for a suitable cloning vector, a plasmid or whatever cloning vector. This site indicate the region where the restriction enzymes act. Okay, if this site is not there, we are unable to cut the vector. We are unable to do the insertion also. So minimum one cloning site of one enzyme is required in a cloning vector. Simple fact. Okay, then I think now this all labelings are clear for you. What are this all labelings? That are all enzymes names and where they act. It is pointed. Their action site. Then here there is a region ROP. It indicates replication of plasmid. This region this region regulates the replication of the plasmid. Along with oocyte, it regulates the replication of plasmid. Okay, and the next important criterion or important characteristic of a suitable cloning vector is selectable markers. Selectable markers. A suitable cloning vector must carry selectable markers. Okay, here in this particular example, PBr322, which are the selectable markers? Which else, what else labelings are there? Without discussion. Which are the labelings we didn't discuss there? These two, ampicillin resistance and tetracycline. These two are the selectable markers in PBr322. So, a suitable cloning vector must contain selectable markers. For example, here ampicillin resistance and tetracycline resistance are the selectable markers in PBr322. Both this ampicillin and tetracycline are what? Antibiotics. So we can say antibiotic resistance is considered as the selectable marker in this. We will elaborate this. Just understand, in PBr322, the selectable markers are ampicillin resistance and tetracycline resistance. And ampicillin and tetracycline are what? Antibiotics. In general, we can say antibiotic resistance is taken as what? Selectable marker in PBr322. In this particular example, there are other selectable markers. Here, this is used as a selectable marker. What is a selectable marker is another important point to discuss. That all serious matters we will discuss in our next class. Okay, I think you are clear with these topics. What are the characteristic features of a cloning vector? Okay, if so, we will wind up for today, and next class we will discuss about the selectable markers, antibiotic resistance and enzyme sequence. Two cases we will discuss in the next class. Okay, I think you are okay. So study this topic seriously, then meet you in the next class. Thank you.